In this lesson, Dr. Covey will talk about beginning with the end in mind. As you watch this, think about your goals. What are some of the small promises that you can keep right now to help lead you towards achieving them? Do your goals help connect you to a deeper purpose?
The third habit, putting first things first, takes tremendous willpower. I would start very, very small with some very small thing that you know you can accomplish, but still test you a little. Make a promise, keep it. Then a little larger promise. Make it, keep it. Make it, keep it. A succession of such promises made and kept will gradually begin to change your nature until your sense of honor becomes greater than your moods, and you're no longer a function of your moods or your feelings. You're instead a function of your commitments, your promise making, or your goal selection. And that is an exhilarating thing once you start to realize, I truly am the creative force of my own life. Or you may find that the deeper problem is that you don't have a deep sense of purpose in your life, a deep sense of reason for being, and you need to connect to that. You may find that the real problem is not the lack of discipline, but it's the lack of habit too. You're not beginning with the end in mind. You haven't paid enough attention to what is really meaningful to you. Because once you've done that, you start to tap into willpower in unbelievable ways. And habit 3 may be just an absolute natural thing that follows the full completion of habit 2. Because the tendency, like on that sugar fast, is that people that got into a chocoholic kind of spirit, they just wanted chocolate one way or another. They just held back, and they didn't do it. And you can't believe what they said to each other in their small groups. The feeling of excitement they had about their confidence toward themselves, and their ability to do other things, and how that expanded their horizon. It literally enabled them to break with their history, to break with their family history, to break with even genetic tendencies. What's fascinating is to study people who have genetically, that is, built into their genes, these tendencies toward certain diseases, to see how they learn to manage those diseases. And they can do it. But they have to use this power of choice. They have to exercise their initiative and use those 4 unique endowments. And it also needs to be connected. I'll tell you what, you'll find it is connected even if you don't think it is. It will affect your mind, your heart, and your spirit. It'll expand you. It'll enlarge your understanding of life, your sympathies toward life. It'll enlarge all of the goals that you set in your life. All of this represents this private victory. There was a young man who was involved in a drinking and driving accident, and he was the driver. He woke up in the hospital, and his friends told him that he had been involved in this terrible accident where his friend was killed. He had to go to jail for manslaughter. Imagine what his life was like. It broke up his marriage. It disrupted his friends, his friendships with other people. Everything was affected in his life. Then he got hold of this material that I'm talking to you about, that deals with the body, the mind, the heart, and the spirit. They plea bargained from 30 years to 10 years. That means he had to spend 10 years in jail. But by this time, by the time he went to jail, actually, and his wife had separated from him, he started setting goals, starting with simple things. He became an active person with some of the top officials of the jail in cleaning their rooms and so forth. He got their confidence. Little by little, his small circle of influence, it was very small initially, started to increase and increase and increase, to where he saw a lot of children that would come in on visiting days with their mothers or fathers, and they didn't have anything to do. And he began to have influence with his jail keepers, with the officials. And so he got them persuaded to set up a kind of an area where children could play and have fun and have books, and where parents could sit and read to their kids and establish a normal relationship with their kids, even though one of the parents was in jail. This is what happened. And then little by little, his wife began to see the impact of this, and she wanted to come back to the marriage, which she did. But he was still in jail for 10 years. Then he went to a halfway house where he could go out and do things in the community. So he set bigger goals. He would go to different schools and speak to them about drinking and driving. And he influenced perhaps hundreds, maybe ultimately, indirectly, thousands and thousands of people. Then he'd have to go back to jail at night. Then he'd go back out on another assignment. He began to be used by all kinds of people. Why? He used his 4 unique gifts. He was self-aware. He wasn't a product of his past. He wasn't a product of people's opinions of him. He became his personal creator, his personal manager. He became the leader of his own life. He won a private victory. While he was in that jail, his own company, which was a motorcycle business, very, very successful, burnt down. And he felt really depressed. By this time, he had so influenced the people around him that they affirmed what he had been teaching them. That his parents would rebuild that company. He started it initially. And that he would learn and that they would learn. And that things were not lost. They weren't even though he was in a state of depression at that time, he came out of it rapidly so he could deal with these setbacks. I mean, here's a prisoner who changes the prison, makes it possible for parents to spend time with their kids, play with them, having toys there that he got volunteers to give, books there, a library. Then he started influencing all these kids in high school, junior high, not to drink and drive. He'd go out and do this kind of work. Why? He became the creative force of his own life. That's what you're capable of doing. Now that is really exciting. You get on this process and you think through this framework of achieving this private victory, maybe starting with some small goal, accomplishing it, then a little larger one, accomplish it. Your whole world will explode with opportunity and excitement. That's what will happen to you.
In this lesson, Dr. Covey talked about beginning with the end in mind. As you continue to the Think section of this lesson, remember the story that Dr. Covey shared. Think of what you are willing to do to reach your goals.